Class, we're down to the last type of financial statement. Class, we're down to the last type of financial statement. Statement of cash flows. Statement of cash flows is under PAS 7. The statement of cash flows provides information about the inflows and outflows of cash. Sir, why do we need to prepare statement of cash flows? Hindi ba enough na yung statement of comprehensive income? Actually, ang reason is because net income is different from cash flows. Okay, sir, bakit naman different yung dalawa na yan? Because in preparing statement of comprehensive income, if you remember, ang ina-apply natin dyan is the accrual method. In the accrual method, we record income as we earn and we record expense as we incur. Ganun yung computation natin ng net income. Pero for statement of cash flows, mag-record tayo ng income kapag na-receive na natin. Mag-record tayo ng expense kapag nabayad na natin. Alright? And also, there are items na nag-a-appear in the statement of comprehensive income pero hindi nag-a-appear in the statement of cash flows. A good example is depreciation expense. We know kapag may depreciation expense, bababa yung net income natin. Pero wala siyang effect in our cash flows. Okay? So that's why we need to prepare statement of cash flows. In the statement of cash flows, we have three major sections. Operating activities, investing activities, and financing activities. Doon tayo sa operating activities. Kaya siya tinawag na operating activities because this is related to the entity's operations. So basically, yung main line of business ng isang entity. Alright? Now, we have two acceptable methods under operating activities. Direct method and indirect method. For direct method, may mga different sections yan. Susulat ko. First is cash received from customers. Susulat mo muna, explain ko later. Okay, cash received from customers. Next is cash paid to suppliers. Next is cash paid for operating expense or OPEX. And then we also have interest paid and income tax paid. Okay, and then makukuha mo dyan, cash flows from operating activities. Okay, sir, bakit naging operating activities yan? Because again, pag operating activities related to operations, cash received from customers, ibig sabihin, nagbebenta tayo, sale yan. Cash paid to suppliers, inventory yan. Cash paid for operating expenses, yun yung mga everyday business expenses. So yung tatlo na yan, sales, purchases, and expenses, everyday business activities yan na related sa company's operations. Alright? So yun yung direct method. And also, sa PAS 7 kasi class, required doon na i-present mo separately yung interest paid and income tax paid. Naalala nyo sa statement of comprehensive income, separately presented din yan. Ganun din sa statement of cash flows. Alright? We call this the direct method. Now, meron pang isang allowed na method for us. We call this indirect. Sir, bakit siya tinawag na indirect? Because ang gagawin natin dito is we will convert net income into cash flows. So basically, mag-start tayo sa statement of comprehensive income, we'll convert it to statement of cash flows. So sulat ko muna class kung ano yung formula and then later explain ko kung bakit ganun. Okay? We start with net income. And then next is we have number 1, adjustment for non-cash items. Adjustment for non-cash items. So mga common examples yan. Depreciation expense. So we add back depreciation expense. Sir, bakit mo ina-add yung depreciation expense? Because the depreciation expense, parang example natin kanina, bumaba yung net income natin pero walang effect sa cash flows. Ang goal natin, i-convert yung net income to cash flows. Since bumaba yung net income, okay, bumaba to, kailangan mo na i-add back yung depreciation expense. Got it? Next is, ano pa example? Amortization expense. Same reasoning sa depreciation expense. What else? Plus natin yung loss on sale. For example, nagbenta tayo ng PPE, meron tayong loss. Yung loss na yun, nagpababa ng net income. Pero walang effect sa cash flows. Paano mo siya gagawin cash flows? Kailangan natin i-add back. The same way, kapag naman gain on sale, kailangan i-minus natin. Because kapag gain on sale, tataas yung net income, pero walang effect sa cash flows. So, ibig sabihin, overstated yung net income, kailangan i-minus natin yan. We call this adjustment for non-cash items. Next. Number 2 is changes in working capital. Do you remember working capital? Tama ba? Current assets minus current liabilities yan. Tama? Ito class yung rule for working capital. Kapag for example, accounts receivable, ima-minus mo yung increase in accounts receivable and ipa-plus mo naman yung increase in accounts payable. Alright, sir, paano nangyari yan? Magbigay tayo ng illustration. Lagyan natin ng footnote A and footnote B. I'll show you kung bakit ganito yung rule. Okay? Letter A, dun sa accounts receivable, pag nagbenta tayo sa customer, debit AR, credit sales. Tama? For example, 100,000. Tama ba class? Because nag-record tayo ng sales, tumaas yung net income natin. Okay? Ng 100,000. Pero walang effect sa cash flows kasi AR pa rin yan. Hindi pa natin nakokollect yan. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kailangan tanggalin natin yung increase sa sales na yan. Therefore, kapag tumaas yung AR natin, kailangan i-minus mo yan para ma-convert natin yung net income into cash flows. Right? Tandaan mo, class, kapag current asset yung pinag-uusapan natin, inverse relationship. Ano ibig sabihin ng inverse? Pag tumaas yung current asset, kailangan mo i-minus. Okay? Doon naman tayo sa accounts payable. Entry natin dyan, debit purchases, credit accounts payable. Let's say 50,000. Now, alam natin class na yung purchases na yan, tama ba, mapupunta sa cost of goods sold yan pag nabenta mo na yung inventory, right? Now, yung purchases, mapupunta sa cost of goods sold, therefore, bababa yung net income natin. Does that make sense? Okay. Pero accounts payable pa lang yan, hindi pa natin nababayaran. Therefore, kung mababa yung net income, paano mo siya gagawing cash flow? Kailangan i-add back mo yan. That's why pag nag-increase yung accounts payable, kailangan plus yan. Therefore, kapag current liability, direct relationship naman. Got it? Kapag current asset, inverse relationship. Ibig sabihin ng inverse, pag tumaas, minus. Pag bumaba, plus. Pag sinabing direct relationship sa current liability, pag tumaas yung current liability, plus. Pag bumaba, minus. Okay? So, tatanda mo lang yung 2 entries na yan. Okay, so tatlong sections na naman yung indirect method. So, okay tayo. Adjustment for non-cash items, changes in working capital, and then number 3, ito lang din. Kasi kailangan presented separately yung interest paid, okay, lagay natin, interest paid and income tax paid. Okay, whether direct method or indirect method, income tax paid, interest paid, presented separately yan. Alright? Now, makukuha natin dito is cash flows from operating activities. So, ibig sabihin class, whether direct method or indirect method, magkamukha lang dapat yung makukuha mo na cash flows from operating activities. Kaya siya tinawag na indirect because kino-compute natin yung cash flows indirectly gamit yung net income. Okay? Ulitin ko class, tatlo lang tatandaan yung sections. Kapag indirect method, syempre start ka with net income. Ang goal mo dyan, gagawin mong cash flows. First is adjustment for non-cash items such as depreciation expense, changes in working capital, kapag current asset, inverse. Kapag current liability, direct. And last one, interest paid and income tax paid because required yan ng PAS7 na presented separately. You get cash flows from operating activities. Indirectly, kino-compute natin yung cash flows from net income. Unlike direct method, directly pinapakita natin, ito yung cash na na-receive ko sa customer. Ito yung binayad natin sa supplier. Ito yung binayad natin sa operating expense. Ganun siya. Now, direct method class, ito yung encouraged by PAS7. Pero yung common na ginagamit in practice is the indirect method. Okay? Pero acceptable both yan. Later, pag magsasagot tayo ng direct method, tanda mo kasi ang technique dyan is using T accounts. Alright? So, balikan natin yan. That's operating activities. Main line of the business or yung related sa operations of an entity. Let's now go to investing activities. When you say investing activities class, these are activities related to purchase and sale of long-term investments and PPE. Ano mga examples ng long-term investments natin? FVOCI. Financial asset at amortized cost. Okay, what else? Investment property, investment in associate, intangible asset, and so on and so forth. Okay? Pag PPE naman, meron tayong land, building, equipment, etc. Okay? So, pag related sa purchase and sale of long-term investments and PPE, tanda mo, under investing activities yan. Okay? So, later, apply natin yan. And last one is financing activities. Pag naman financing activities, related naman to long-term borrowings and issuance of shares. Long-term borrowings and issuance of shares. Alright? So, basically, yung mga examples dito, class, pag nagbayad tayo ng dividends, okay, pag meron tayong mga loans, okay, issuance of shares, lease payments, and so on and so forth. Tandaan mo, class, kapag financing activities, related yan sa mga non-current liability and equity. Okay? Kasi paano ba tayo nagpa-finance ng business? Paano tayo nagbaborrow? Non-current liability. Okay? Or equity pag i-issue tayo ng shares. Alright? So again, operating activities related to operations. Investing activities, basta related sa investment and PPE. Kapag related sa borrowings natin, sa issuance of shares, and current liability and equity, financing activities yan. Okay? Now, baka makatulong sa inyo, ito yung guide natin class, balance sheet perspective. Ganito yan. For assets, kapag current siya, okay, and current liability, tandaan mo, operating activities yan. Parang kanina, yung working capital, AR and AP, operating activities yan. Kapag naman class, non-current asset, investing activities yan. Okay, such as long-term investments and PPE. Kapag naman non-current liability and equity, financing activities naman yan. Non-current liability and equity. So, tandaan mo kapag ganito yung mga items, pag current, operating activities. Non-current asset, investing activities. Non-current liability and equity, financing activities. Okay, so apply muna natin yung class. Let's go to illustrative example number 8. So, still under financial statements na illustrative examples. For this one, for number 8, papakita ko sa inyo kung paano ginagawa yung direct method. Okay, so let's take a look at the requirements. Compute for the following: cash receipts from customers, cash payment to suppliers, cash payments for operating expenses, and cash payments for acquisition of PPE. Okay, Pinnacle Company, the following information during 2025. Doon muna tayo sa requirement 1, cash receipts from customers. So, ganito gagawin ko dyan, class. Again, sabi ko kanina, ang technique kapag direct method, T accounts lang yan. Laging T accounts yan. So, cash payment, cash receipts from customers, syempre, accounts receivable yung gagamitin natin ng T account, AR. Nakita mo yung AR, yung first item, January 1, 2025, that's 600,000. Okay, and then meron tayong ending balance na 400,000. And then sales on account, 8 million. Siyempre sa debit yan. Okay, sold for X, na-receive natin from customers, 600,000. Plus 8 million, minus 400,000, you get 8.2 million. Sagot natin class. So number 1, cash receipts from customers, 8.2 million. So imagine mo sa statement of cash flows, ito yan. Cash received from customers, 8.2 million. Let's go to number 2, cash payments to suppliers. Kapag cash payments to suppliers, gawa ka agad ng T account for inventory and accounts payable. Yan yung partner na accounts natin. Okay? Sige, so let's go to, okay, so meron tayong budget expense, accounts payable, January 1, nakita mo yun, 350,000. So lagay natin dito, 350. And then accounts payable, December 31, 200,000. And then Cost of sales, syempre yung cost of sales magbabawas sa inventory yan. So lagay mo dito yung cost of sales and nakalagay dyan, increase in inventory 900,000. Kapag increase, let's assume 0 yung beginning, 900,000 yung ending. Okay? Solve for X, yung X na mapuha natin, yan yung purchases natin. Tama? 900,000 plus 4 million, that's 4.9 million. Again, ito yung purchases. Pero ang tanong sa atin, cash payments to suppliers. Hindi necessary na bayad lahat yan. Okay? Ilalagay mo dito yan sa accounts payable. 4.9 million, solve for X, cash payment to suppliers natin, 350,000, plus 4.9, minus 200, you get 5,050,000. Sagot natin sa question number 2, cash payments to suppliers, 5,050,000. Okay, so kung papansin mo, dito siya, cash paid to suppliers. Siyempre, negative yan. Okay, so yung kanina cash received from customers, positive, negative naman yung cash paid to suppliers. Let's now go to number 3, cash payments for operating expenses. So kapag ganyan naman, kapag OPEX, kapag given yung accrued expense and prepaid expense, yun yung gagamitin mo na T-account. So gagawin ko dyan, class, meron tayong accrued expense, and then meron tayong prepaid expense. Okay? So yung accrued expense nakalagay, increase in accrued expenses 410,000 from 0 maging 410. So syempre credit kasi liability yung accrued expense. Prepaid expense, nag-decrease daw 390. Okay? So 390 yung beginning, asset yung prepaid expense, tama? And then naging 0 siya. Okay? So ganito gagawin ko dyan, class. Kailangan natin malaman how much ba yung binayad natin na operating expenses. Nakita mo ba yung operating expenses on accrual basis? Nakita mo yun? 1220. Pakita ko sa iyo journal entry. Debit operating expense 1220,000. Okay? And then, tama ba, class, nag-increase yung accrued expense, ibig sabihin, di ba, liability yan, hindi pa bayad yan. So, credit natin yung accrued expense, which is 410,000, and then bumaba yung prepaid expense natin. For example, yan yung mga prepaid supplies, gagamitin muna natin yung existing natin. So, i-credit natin prepaid expense, 390,000. Therefore, ang kailangan mo lang bayaran talaga for the operating expense this period, 1220,000 minus 410 minus 390,000, you have 420,000. Sagot natin dyan, class, cash payments for operating expenses, 420,000. So kung papansinin mo, dito siya, cash paid for OPEX, syempre negative yan, you have 420,000. Next is cash payments for the acquisition of PPE. So ganito lang gagawin ko dyan. For number 4, T-account tayo ng PPE. Okay, so January 1 natin is 1.8 million. And then ending balance natin is 2.7 million. And then punta tayo sa additional information. Number 1, there were no write-offs of accounts receivable. So kapag may write-off, syempre makaka-apekto dito yan sa T-account natin. Wala naman daw eh. So walang effect sa atin yan. Equipment with an accumulated depreciation of 200,000 was sold for 120 at a gain on sale of 15. So kung i-journalize natin yan, meron tayong debit cash, 120,000. And then meron tayong credit gain, 15,000 daw. Tama? And then accumulated depreciation, debit mo yan for 200,000. Balancing figure natin, yun yung cost of the equipment. So, tingnan natin, 120,000 plus 200 minus 15, yung cost of the equipment is 305,000. So, gagawin ko dyan, yung 305, lalagay ko dito kasi binenta natin yan. Ang tanong sa atin, how much daw yung binili natin, cash payments for the acquisition of PPE. Let's solve for X, 1.8 million, as 2.7 million plus 305,000 minus 1.8 million. Nakuha ko dito, class, is 1,205,000. 1,205,000. And we know, kapag bumili ka ng PPE, under investing activities yan. Okay, so yan. That's how you do direct method. Tandaan mo, class, kapag direct method, T-accounts lang ang technique dyan. Sige, isa pa. Sa pang direct method, let's go to main problem number 3. Class, jump ka dun sa main problem number 3. Direct method pa rin yan. Okay, main problem number 3. So, tignan natin. We have 5 questions. First question is, what is the cash collected from customers? Cash collections from customers. Question number 2, amount of purchases. Question number 3 is cash disbursed or yung payment natin for purchases. Number 4, variable expense. And number 5, fixed expense. So, ganito gagawin ko dyan. Main problem number 3. Sige. An entity provided the following data. Meron tayong trade AR na net of allowance. So, ibig sabihin, naka-net siya ng ADA. Tandaan mo, class, kapag direct method, dapat hindi naka-net yung ADA natin. Because ang kino-compute natin dyan, yung collections from customers. Right? Kasi wala namang effect yung ADA sa collections sa customers. Punta ka dun sa, sa last bullet. Last sentence, nakita mo yung each year, dun sa last bullet ha, each year there was a 50,000 bad debt estimate and a 50,000 write-off. Yung 50,000 na bad debt estimate, yun yung ADA, yun yung nakanet yung AR natin. Nakuha niyo yan? So, ang gagawin ko dyan, for AR, question number 1, okay, so meron tayong AR. Ha? Yung beginning natin, nakita mo yung 840,000. 840, kaya lang nakanet yun eh. Add back mo yung 50,000 na ADA. 840 plus 50, 890,000. And then yung ending, 780 plus mo yung 50, kasi every year daw merong 50,000. 780 plus 50, you have 830,000. Okay, punta tayo sa first bullet. Total sales were 12 million for 2021 and 11 million for 2020. Take no 2021 yung tanong, no? Cash sales were 20% of total sales each year. So, kung gagawin ko dyan, sa 2021, meron daw tayong sales na 12 million, tama? Yung cash dyan, yung credit muna, yung credit is 80%, tama? Yung cash naman is 20%. So, how much yan? 12 million times 80%. Yung credit sales natin is 9.6 million. Kuha nyo yan, 9.6 million. And then 12 million times 20%, yung cash sales natin, 2.4 million. Siyempre, yung credit sales, yan yung mapupunta sa AR natin, 9.6 million. Solve for X, 890,000 plus 9.6 million minus 830,000. Yung X natin is 9,660,000. Okay, 96, teka. So 9.6 million, 890, ulitin ko, 890,000 plus 9.6 million. Okay, so may nakalimutan pala ako, class. Punta ka ulit dun sa third bullet na last sentence. Each year, there was a 50,000 budget estimate and 50,000 write-off. Naalala nyo kapag nag-write-off tayo, debit ADA, credit AR. Tama, nagkikredit tayo ng AR. Therefore, meron kang 50,000 dapat dyan. Huwag mo yan? So, recompute natin. So, ang gagawin ko dyan, 890,000 plus 9.6 million minus 50,000 minus 830,000, you get 9,610,000. Okay, ito yung na-collect natin from the customers. Pero, add mo rin yung 2.4 million kasi technically, yung cash sales, collection din natin sa customers yan. So, 9,610,000 plus 2.4 million, compute natin, 9,610 plus 2.4 million, you have 12,010,000. Answer natin, letter A. Okay, so take note, dun sa illustrative example number 8 natin, yung previously sinagutan natin, nakalagay dun, wala daw write-off. Kaya wala tayo nilagay na write-off sa T account. Pero dito sa main problem number 3, merong write-off na 50,000. Nilagay mo siya dito. Okay? So ulitin ko, wag mo ininet yung ADA kasi yung ADA wala naman siyang effect dun sa collection natin. Wag mo ininet yun, dapat naka-gross yan. And then yung write-off, wag mo kalimutang i-consider sa T account. So you get 9,610. But don't forget, syempre, yung cash sales, technically collection din naman yan. Add mo yan, you get letter A. What is the amount of purchases? So sabi ko kanina, kapag purchases, syempre, ang partner mo dyan, inventory and accounts payable. Okay? Inventory nakalagay, 1.5 million yung beginning balance, and then ending balance is 1.4 million. For accounts payable, 950,000 beginning balance, and then ending balance is 980,000. Alright? And then, kung mapapansin mo, class, punta ka sa first bullet, last sentence, cost of goods sold was 8.4 million. Nakita mo yan? So, pag cost of goods sold, syempre, credit yan sa inventory. Sold for X para makuha natin yung purchases, 1.4 million plus 8.4 million minus 1.5 million, you get 8.3 million. So, sagot natin, class, for question number 2, amount of purchases, yun yung tanong, 8.3 million. What is the cash disbursed? O, doon naman tayo sa accounts payable. 8.3 million, lagay natin yun sa credit ng accounts payable. Sold for X yung debit, yan yung binayaran natin. So, 8.3 million plus 950,000 minus 980,000. Cash payment natin is letter boy, 8,270,000. Letter B, 8,270,000 for question number 3. Okay, question number 3. Let's go to question number 4. Nakalagay dyan, class, what amount of cash was disbursed for variable expenses? Punta tayo dun sa second bullet. Variable expenses for 2021 amounted to 1.2 million. So, 2021, nakalagay, 1.2 million daw. And then, and varied in proportion to sales. Ano ibig sabihin nun? How much ba yung sales natin in 2021? Tama ba? 12 million. Tama? So, 1.2 million, pag dinivide mo yan sa 12 million, tama ba, class? 10% yan. So, yung variable expense natin is 10% of sales. Okay. And then, sabi dyan, variable expenses had been paid 50% in the year incurred and 50% the following year. So, ang tiyatanong dito, how much yung binayaran natin in 2021? Tama? So, 1.2 million times mo yan sa 50%. Okay? So, makukuha natin dyan, class, 600,000. Pero take note na yung 2020, meron din tayo dyang babayaran pa. Okay? How much yung sales natin yung 2020? Given ba siya? Yes. Punta ka dun sa first bullet. 11 million nakalagay dyan. Okay? Total sales for 2020, 11 million. 11 million times 10%. Okay, 11 million times 10%, yun yung 1.1 million yan. And then, yung kalahati niyan ngayon babayaran. Kasi nakalagay, paid variable expenses had been paid 50% in the year incurred, ito yun, year incurred, and 50% the following year. Ito yun, following year ng 2020 is 2021. Okay, so 11 million, times natin sa 10%, times 0.5, you get 550,000. 600,000 plus 550,000, you get 1,150,000. Question number 4, answer natin letter A, 1,150,000. Let's go to question number 5. What amount of cash was disbursed for fixed expenses? Punta tayo dun sa third bullet. Fixed expenses including 350,000 depreciation and 50,000 budget expense totaled 1 million. Tama ba, class? Yung fixed expenses natin, 1 million siya, pero yung depreciation expense and budget expense, non-cash yun. Okay? Tanggalin natin yan. 350 minus natin yung minus 50. Okay? 350,000 minus 50,000, how much yan? 1 million minus 350,000 minus 50,000. Ito lang yung cash na fixed expenses natin, 600,000. Got it? And then, sabi each year. So, meron tayong 600,000 per year na fixed expenses. Sabi dyan, 80% of fixed expenses involving cash were paid in the year incurred and 20% the following year. Tama ba, class? Ito yung 2021 natin. Tama? So, ibig sabihin, 80% yan, babayaran nyo yan. 600,000 times 80%, you get 480,000. Pero yung 2020, babayaran din nyo yan. Tama? 600,000 times 20% na lang. Yung from 2020. 600,000 times 20%, that's 120,000. 480,000 plus 120, you get 600,000. Answer, letter C. Easy. Letter C for question number 5. Okay, that's how you do direct method. So yeah, now, balik tayo dito sa discussion natin, indirect method naman. Just to recall, kapag indirect method, again, start tayo with net income, convert natin to cash flows. Meron tayong 3 items na very important. Adjustments for non-cash items, changes in working capital and interest paid and income tax paid. Let's go to illustrative example number 9. Doon mo tayo sa operating activities. Illustrative example number 9. Okay. Sabi dyan, requirement is compute for the cash flow from operating activities using the indirect method. Sige, and then, Mr. Accounting Company has the following information on December 31, 2025. Meron tayong January 1, meron tayong December 31. Kapag ganyang class, kaya given yung ganyan because from there, mako-compute natin yung increases and decreases in working capital or changes in working capital. Okay, so doon mo tayo sa accounts receivable. Tama ba class? For accounts receivable, AR natin, from 4, inet mo na yung ADA. Pwede mong inet yung ADA kapag indirect method. Okay? Kapag direct method, sinabi ko kanina, huwag mo inet yung ADA sa AR. Kapag indirect method, pwede yan. Okay? So, pwede yan. Tama ba class yung AR natin? 4 million minus 100,000, 3.9 million. In January 1, 3.9 million. Naging 5 million minus 250, 4,750,000. Okay? So, tama ba class yung AR natin? 4,750 minus 3.9 million. That is increased by 850,000. Tama? 850K. And then, for prepaid rent from 960 naging 800, bumaba ng 160,000. And then for accounts payable, from 1.7 million naging 2.2, increased by 500,000. Ang tawag natin dyan, changes in working capital. Mr. Accounting reported net income of 2.2 million for the year, after depreciation expense of 50,000, gain on sale of equipment 60, restructuring and other provisions 100,000. None of the provisions recognized during the period affected cash. Ganito gagawin ko dyan class. Pag indirect method, start ko with net income. Okay? So start ako with net income, which is 2.2 million. And then, meron tayong non-cash items. Number 1, non-cash items. So, ang gagawin ko dyan, for non-cash items, tama ba, meron tayong depreciation expense. For depreciation expense, ano yung magiging adjustment mo dyan? Nag-decrease yung net income niya, pero walang effect sa cash flows. Kailangan natin i-add back. Plus 50,000. And then, gain on sale. Pag gain, syempre, tumaas yung net income mo. Pero walang cash flows yan. So, ima-minus mo naman yan. So, lahat ng expenses plus lahat ng income or mga gains, minus naman yan. Okay? Restructuring and other provisions. Provisions yan, ibig sabihin, hindi pa bayad. Okay? Expense yan. Tama? Therefore, kailangan natin i-add back yan. Lagay ko na dito, provisions, plus natin sa 100,000. Okay, yun yung first section natin. Adjustments for non-cash items. Next is changes in working capital. Lagay ko dito, changes in working capital. Na-compute na natin earlier yan. Ang rule natin, kapag current asset, inverse relationship. Current liability, direct relationship. Na-prove na natin yan through journal entries. Doon mo tayo sa AR. Tama ba? May increase tayo in AR. Tama? So, increase in AR, dapat inverse relationship. So, mag-minus tayo. Pag nag-increase yan, minus ka. And then, punta tayo dun sa prepaid rent. Okay? Nag-decrease naman yung prepaid rent natin. Alam natin, prepaid rent is an asset, so therefore, meron siyang inverse relationship, plus 160,000. And then, we have accounts payable, tumaas. Increase in accounts payable, pag current liability, direct relationship. Therefore, tumaas yan, plus 500 tayo. Alright, so wala naman sa problem na income tax paid and interest paid, so huwag natin i-consider yan. Therefore, yung cash flows from operating activities natin, let's compute. Okay, 2.2 million net income. And then we have plus 50,000 depreciation expense, minus 60,000 gain, plus 100,000 provision, minus 850 AR, plus 160 prepaid rent, plus 500,000 accounts payable, you get 2.1 million. Cash flows from operating activities, final answer natin, 2.1 million. Okay. Sige. Now, balik tayo dun sa AR. Sabi ko kanina, kapag direct method, wag mo inenet yung ADA. Kapag indirect method, pwede mong inet yung ADA. Pero pwede rin hindi. Ganito mangyayari dyan, class. Tama ba yung AR natin, 850,000 yan? Tama? Paano sir kapag hindi natin inenet? So, nakalagay dyan, class, pag hindi mo inenet, yung AR natin from 4 million, magiging 5 million. Tama ba? Increase by 1 million yan. Right? And then yung ADA natin, which is yung budget expense natin, tama ba? From 100 naging 250. So, ibig sabihin, increase by 150,000. Okay? So, plus 150,000. So, ang gagawin mo dyan, class, same yung effect niyan actually. So, pwede mong gawin, kunyari, ayaw mong inet yung ADA. Ganito gagawin mo dyan. Yung AR mo, magiging minus 1 million dito. Okay, instead of 850. Pero yung budget expense, non-cash item yan. So, kailangan mo i-add back dito yan. So, meron kang plus 150,000. Therefore, 1 million minus 150,000, yun din yung 850. Kaya sabi ko kanina, pwede mong inet na yan agad para mas madali. Got it? Sige. Okay, let's now go to illustrative example number 10. Investing and financing activities naman. Again, for investing, related sa investments and PPE. Okay? Long-term investments and PPE. Kapag financing, paano ba tayo nagpa-finance ng isang business? Non-current liability, for example, loans payable, mga ganyan. And equity, for example, issuance ng shares. Basta related, non-current liability and equity financing yan. Non-current asset, investing activities. Okay, so, tingnan natin. Compute for the net cash flows, investing activities. Okay? Tingnan natin. Let's read the given. CPA company had the following information for 2025. So, for each item, tingnan natin kung ano yung classification niya. Letter A, acquired equipment with a purchase price of 1 million by paying 20% in cash and issuing a note payable for the balance. There were no payments made on the note during the year. Tama ba, class? Equipment yan, ibig sabihin related sa PPE. Lagyan mo dyan investing activities. Okay? So, ganito gagawin ko dyan. Lagyan natin dito yung investing activities, and then dito yung financing activities. Alright? Tama ba yung number 1 na yan? Investing activities yan. Pero take note na yung equipment, ang price niya is 1 million, pero ang binayaran mo lang 200,000, which is 20%. Pag statement of cash flow, syempre cash flows na yung mahalaga sa atin. Lalagay ko dito, acquisition of equipment under investing activities, 200,000. Negative. Okay? Kasi nagbayad tayo. Huwag 1 million na kasi unpaid yung 800,000. 200,000 lang. Letter B, acquired land with a fair value of 800,000 by issuing shares with aggregate par value of 600,000. Okay, so bumili ng land, nag-issue ng shares. Meron bang cash involved dyan? Walang cash involved dyan. Ang tawag natin dyan, class, this is an example of significant non-cash transaction. Tandaan mo, kapag significant non-cash transaction, non-cash, dito bumili ng land, pero shares, hindi cash yung pinabayad. Kailangan mo lang yan i-disclose in the notes to financial statements. Okay? You have to disclose it. Significant non-cash transaction. So, ignore mo yan. Hindi yan papasok ng statement of cash flows natin. Letter C, sold equipment with a cost of 500,000 for 100,000 to one of its directors. So, binenta natin yung equipment, and na-receive natin 400,000. Tama ba? Equipment is PPE. So, dito siya. Lagyan natin, sale of equipment. This time, positive naman yan. How much? 400,000. Okay. Next, letter D, borrowed 320,000 from a bank. Use the cash proceeds as follows. 200,000 for additional working capital and 120,000 to settle cash dividends declared in 2025. Okay, borrowed 320,000 from a bank. Nag-borrow, nag-finance. And we know, non-current liability yan. Tama? Financing yan. Nagpa-finance tayo. Okay, so lalagay ko dito yan. Borrowings from bank. How much? 320,000. Siyempre positive yan. Okay? 200,000 for, yung 320 ginamit daw siya as follows. 200,000 for additional working capital. Kapag working capital, operating activities yan. Hindi yan papasok sa investing or financing. Ang papasok sa financing yung cash dividends na 120,000. Sir, bakit sa financing yung dividends? Well, kasi equity yun eh. Tama ba? Kapag nag-declare ka ng dividends, nagde-debit ka ng retained earnings. Equity yan. So, ibig sabihin, class, yung payment of dividends, lalagay mo yan under financing activities, minus 120,000. Therefore, sagot natin dito, cash flows from investing activities, 200 negative, and then positive na 400, you have positive 200,000. Cash flows from financing activities, 320 minus 120, you have 200,000. Okay, so this is how you do illustrative example number 10. Sige, now, punta tayo dun sa, okay, main problem number 1. Okay, main problem number 1. Balik tayo sa operating activities. And actually, kasama pala dyan yung investing and financing. Tingnan natin. Main problem number 1. Okay, so short problem lang yan. Using indirect method, tingnan natin kung paano ito solve yan. The net increase in cash for the year ended December 31, 2021 is as follows. Okay? Ellison Corporation provides the following information. Siyempre, net income yung binigay sa'yo. So, ang gagawin mo na agad dyan, indirect method. Ganun yun. So, net income. Tama ba ang gagawin natin dyan? Start tayo with net income, which is 1,882,000. And then, increase in current assets. Tama ba sa changes in working capital yan? Lagyan natin dito. Changes in working capital. Pag nag-increase yung current assets natin, tama ba? Inverse relationship. So, minus tayo ng 275,000. What else? Increase in current liabilities. Direct relationship naman yan. Plus 122,000. Dividends declared. Saan mo ilalagay yan? Financing activities. So, dito yan. Dito yung operating. Okay. Investing. Financing. Okay. So, financing natin, meron tayong dividends. Siyempre, binayaran natin. So, negative yan. Minus 375,000. Depreciation na 256, non-cash item. Dito siya. Okay. So, depreciation, add back natin yan. Plus 256,000. Treasury stock acquired for cash. Bumili ng treasury shares. Anong klaseng account yung treasury shares? Equity. Kapag equity, financing activity. So, lagay ko lang dito treasury shares. Bumili tayo, so minus yan, 100,000. Long-term debt retired or binayaran natin long-term debt. Kapag long-term debt, non-current yan. Tama? Financing. So, lagay natin, long-term debt minus 591,000. And then, equipment acquired for cash. Obviously, investing activities yan. Lagay natin equipment. Minus yan kasi bumili tayo, 200,000. Okay, so yan yung statement of cash flows natin. Let's compute for the net increase in cash. Net income, 1,882,000. Plus depreciation na 256. Minus 275,000 current assets. Plus 122,000 current liabilities. Minus 200,000 equipment. Minus 375,000 dividends. Minus 100,000 treasury shares. And minus 591,000 long-term debt. You get 719,000 increase in cash. Yun. And by the way, class, yung direct method and indirect method, applicable lang yan sa operating activities, ha? Walang direct method or indirect method sa investing and financing. Isa lang yung format kapag investing and financing. So, that's for main problem number 1. Okay, so, now, I'll show you kung paano, class, mag-compute, okay, or mag-prepare ng statement of cash flows, mag-solve if long problem. Just in case lumabas sa board exam, long problem na statement of cash flows, tuturuan ko kayo kung paano yung step by step, alright? Tandaan mo lang, class, kapag binigyan ka ng long problem, let's say sa FAR, okay naman sa auditing practice, ganito yung gagawin mo. First, pupunta ka muna dun sa additional information. Okay? Sa additional information, ika-classify natin. Operating, investing, or financing. And next, pupunta ka dun sa balance sheet. Ganyan yung technique sa statement of cash flow. Step 1, punta ka sa additional information. Classify natin, operating, investing, or financing activity ba yan? And step 2, pupunta ka sa balance sheet. Okay, let's go to illustrative example, number 11. So, pakita ko sa inyo ano yung ibig sabihin ko dyan. Requirement is prepare a statement of cash flows for the current year. ABC Company provided the following comparative statements of financial position. Nakaba balance sheet yan? Mamaya na yan. Mamaya na yan. Balikan natin yan. Punta tayo sa additional information muna. Okay, punta ka sa baba. Letter A, the net income for the current year was 1,095,000. Tama ba kasi pag net income, operating activities? Lagay mo dyan, operating. Letter B, on Feb 2, the entity issued a 10% stock dividends to shareholders of record. Kapag stock dividends, non-cash item yan. Di-disclose lang natin yan. Lagay mo, disclosure. Letter C, on March 1, the entity issued 90,000 shares for land. Bumili ka ng land, nag-issue ka ng shares. Walang cash. Non-cash item, lagay mo dyan, disclosure lang yan. Letter D, the entity retired long-term bonds with face value of 500,000. A gain on retirement of bonds was reported in the income statement in the amount of 50,000. So, nangyari dyan, class, lagay ko dito. Sa letter D, okay, tama ba, nag-retire na tayo ng long-term bonds. So, debit bonds payable, 500,000, and then meron tayong gain, tama? Credit gain, 50. Ibig sabihin, class, magkakaroon ka ng gain pag mas mura yung nabayaran, tama? Credit cash, 450,000. Ni-retire mo yung bonds na may face value of 500, ang binayad mo lang is 450, kaya ka may gain. So, ano mangyari dyan? Tama ba, class? Yung pag-retire ng bonds payable, yung 450,000 na yan, financing activities yan. Kasi non-current liability yan. While yung gain, operating activities. Kasi, kailangan mo yung i-add back, non-cash item yan. Okay, so take note of that. Yung cash na 450, financing. Outflow, minus yun. Gain naman, operating, kailangan natin i-minus later sa net income kasi part siya ng non-cash item. Okay? Letter E, the entity sold equipment costing 265,000 with carrying amount of 115 for 95,000 cash. So, journalize din natin yan para mas clear. Okay? Debit cash, how much natin binenta? 95,000. And then, credit. Okay, so we have credit equipment costing 265, credit 265 equipment. And then we have debit accumulated depreciation. Tama ba, class? Kung ang carrying amount natin, or kung ang cost natin is 265, carrying amount natin is 115, ibig sabihin yung accumulated depreciation natin is 150,000. Alright? And therefore, meron tayong loss na, tignan natin. So, 95,000 plus 150,000 minus 265, balancing figure, loss mo is 20,000. Tama ba, class? Yung loss na yan, non-cash item yan. Operating activities. Later, pang-adjust natin yan dun sa net income. Pero yung cash na na-receive natin from selling the equipment, investing activities. Got it? Kaya sabi ko kanina, ang pinakaunang mong gagawin, punta ka sa additional information, i-classify mo per item kung saan siya papasok. Okay, next is letter F. On September 30, the entity declared and paid a 2 peso per share cash dividends to 250,000 ordinary shares. So, 250,000 times 2, 500,000. Lagay mo dyan, 500,000 financing activities. And last one, the entity purchased land for 425,000 investing activities yan. Okay na. So, na-classify na natin. Pwede na tayong gumawa ng statement of cash flows. Gumawa tayo sa cash flows from operating activities muna. Okay, operating activities. Tama ba, class? Meron tayong net income according to additional information A, that's 1,095,000. Okay? Lagay ko lang yung footnote. Nakuha ko siya sa letter A. Next is our non-cash items. Ano yung mga nakita natin ng non-cash items? Well, tandaan mo, lagi may depreciation yan. Okay, ang technique dyan, class, mag-TT account tayo. Lagi ka mag-TT account ng PPE and accumulated depreciation. Lalo na yung accumulated depreciation kasi from there, dyan mo compute yung depreciation expense. Okay? Punta tayo sa balance sheet naman this time. Tapos na tayo sa additional information. Balance sheet naman tayo. Okay, so tama ba? Meron kang cash and cash equivalents. 2024, 450, naging 500. So ang goal natin later, yung increase ng cash natin is 50,000. Okay, take note of that. AR, uy, naka-net. Sabi ni sir, kapag indirect method, pwede naman yan. So from 1,050,000, so sulat ko dito, AR, 1,050,000, from 700, naging 1,050,000. Okay, take note yung nasa second column, yun yung 2024, first column 2025. Tama ba, kasi yung AR natin is 350,000, increase by 350,000, doon yan sa working capital mamaya. Inventory natin, from 1.2 naging 1.3, that's increase of 100,000. Okay? Yung land natin, I think na-consider, nasa letter C siya, yung land, non-cash, additional information C, yan yung nag-issue ng shares. So, na-consider na natin yan. PPE, 2.9 million, yung ending balance, lagay mo siya dito, 2.9 million. And then, beginning balance ng PPE natin is 3,165,000. Alright. And then, tama ba, class, nagbenta tayo na 265,000. So, lagay mo dito yan. Sorry, debit balance pala dapat yung PPE. PPE natin is 3,165,000. And then, ending balance is 2.9 million. Meron tayong 265,000 dito. Alright? So, tingnan natin kung balance yung PPE natin. 3,165,000 minus 265,000, 2.9. Tama lang. Ibig sabihin, wala kang acquisition ng PPE. Yan ibig sabihin nun. Accumulated depreciation, beginning natin class is 500,000. And then, ending mo is 450,000. And then, don't forget na nagbenta ka. So, 150,000 dito yan. Therefore, solve for X, 450,000 plus 150,000 minus 500,000, 100,000 dito class is your depreciation expense. Nawan yan? Kaya very important na meron tayong T account for accumulated depreciation. So, non-cash item yan, lagyan natin depreciation expense, which is 100,000, we know, add back natin yan. Lagyan na rin natin yung ibang non-cash item. So, meron tayong gain kanina, okay? So, meron tayong gain, syempre minus naman this time, 50,000. And then, meron tayong loss, na 20,000. This time, add back natin yan plus 20,000. Alright. Sige, continue tayo sa balance sheet. Okay na tayo sa accumulated depreciation. Nakita mo yung patent from 165, okay, naging 150. Tama ba, class? Decrease siya ng 15,000. Okay, 165 naging 150. Paano nagdi-decrease ang isang patent? Kapag merong amortization expense. So, meron tayong amortization na 15, therefore, add back mo yan. Plus 15,000. Okay. Accounts payable, nag-increase from 1 million to 1,350. Okay, that's increase of 350,000. Alam natin, pag lagyan natin dito, changes in working capital. Okay, later, consider natin yung accounts payable. Accrued expenses from 1,050,000 naging 1.3. So, liability yan, increase siya ng 250,000. And then, bonds payable, meron tayong share cap. Yung bonds payable, nandun na yan sa additional information B. Okay, share capital, yung bumili tayo ng share. So, basically, parang na-consider na natin lahat yan. Alright? So, tingnan natin. Changes in working capital, doon tayo sa AR. Increase in AR, syempre, dapat minus 350,000 yan. Increase in inventory, minus 100,000. What else? Meron tayong accounts payable, increase in accounts payable, plus 350,000. And then, increase in accrued expenses, again, pagka liabilities, direct relationship, plus 250,000. Okay, so, let's compute for cash flows from operating activities. Tingnan natin. So, 1,095,000. And then, plus 100,000, minus 50,000, plus 20,000, plus 15,000, minus 350, minus 100, plus 350, plus 250,000. You get here 1,330,000. Pag tinanong how much yung cash flows from operating activities, 1,330,000. Doon naman tayo sa cash flows from investing activities. Meron tayong sale of equipment, tama? Yung 95,000. Lagay ko dito, sale of equipment from bullet E, okay? Plus tayo ng 95,000. Plus 95,000. And then, purchase of land. Punta ka dun, class, sa letter G. Okay, sa letter G, identity purchase land, 425,000 cash. Siyempre, minus 425,000 yan. Okay, cash flows from investing activities, 425,000. Minus 95,000, you have negative 330,000. Pag tinanong how much yung cash flows from investing activities, sagot mo dyan, negative 330,000. And last one, financing activities. Ano yung mga financing activities natin? Nag-retire tayo ng bonds. Lagyan natin dito, retirement of bonds payable. Siyempre, tayo nagbayad niyan, so minus 450,000. Ano pa? Tama ba, class? Meron tayong dividends. According to bullet, ano yan? Bullet F, 500,000. So, payment of dividends. Siyempre, nagbayad tayo, so minus yan, 500,000. Therefore, cash flows from financing activities natin, negative 950,000. Right? So, tingnan natin. Increase in cash and cash equivalents. Actually, cash and cash equivalents pinag-uusapan natin dito, hindi lang cash. Right? So, 1,330,000 minus 330 minus 950, you have 50,000. Okay? And then yung cash beginning natin, 2024, lagay ko dyan, cash and cash equivalents, January 1, 2025, or yung basically in 2024 last year, 450,000. Okay? So, 50 yung increase, beginning mo is 450, therefore cash and cash equivalents, January or December 31, 2025 is 500,000. O consistent tayo dun sa nasa balance sheet. Diba sa first item na cash and cash equivalents, 450,000 yung beginning, nag-increase ng 50, ending natin is 500,000. Okay? So, that's how you do statement of cash flows kapag mahaba yung binigay sa'yo. Pero I doubt naman na magbibigay na ganito. Just in case lang. Additional information muna, classify natin. And then balance sheet. Sa balance sheet kasi makikita mo yung increases and decreases in working capital. Ang mahalaga na mag-T account tayo, PPE, accumulated depreciation. Later, magsagot pa tayo ng isa. May mga additional T accounts pa tayo. Okay? That's how you do illustrative example number 11. Now, let's go to illustrative, main problem number 2. I think last na to. Main problem number 2. Comprehensive ulit. Papakita ko sa inyo, class, isa pa, kung paano yung mag-solve ng comprehensive na statement of cash flows. So we have ilang questions ito. Question number 1, cash flows provided by operating activities. We have investing activities and we have financing activities. Alright, so punta muna tayo additional information sa gitna agad. Okay, accounts receivable and accounts payable relate to merchandise for sale in the ordinary course of business. The allowance for bad debts was the same at the end of 2021-2020. No receivable first charge, okay. AP are recorded net of discount and so on and so forth. The proceeds from the note payable were used to finance acquisition of PPE. Ayun sinabi, babalikan natin later yan. Ordinary shares were sold to provide additional working capital. Okay, so, punta tayo dun sa question number, main problem number 2 to. Okay, question number 1, operating activities. So, tingnan natin. Meron tayong given na balance sheet pero hindi magkakasunod. Okay, PPE, nakalagay dyan class, from 1,440,000 naging to 190. Again, T account ka kapag PPE. Okay, lagi ka mag-TT account kapag PPE and accumulated depreciation. Yun yung mga partner dyan. PPE natin beginning, 1,440,000. Ending natin is 2,190,000. Accumulated depreciation, 270. Naging 450,000. Alright. And then, tama ba, class? Sabi dyan, dun sa last paragraph, the proceeds from the note payable were used to finance the acquisition of PPE. So, anong nangyari dyan? Yung notes payable natin, nasaan na ba yung notes payable? Tingin ka dun sa long-term note payable, fourth item sa gitna, sa baba, okay? Long-term note payable, nakita mo yun? 1,095,000. and then 1,275,000 yung ending. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, class, yung PPE natin na nag-increase, okay, tama ba? PPE natin, which is 1,440, okay, naging 2,190, solve for X, 1,440, and then naging 2,190, ibig sabihin, bumili tayo ng 750,000 na PPE. Okay? So, kumbaga, parang pag mag-e-entry ka dyan, debit cash, credit notes payable, utang muna tayo, 750,000. Okay, so lagay mo dito, meron kang 750,000. And then, binili natin yung PPE. Debit PPE, credit cash, 750,000. So, yung nangutang tayo na 750, financing activities yan. Utang yan, non-current liability yan. Nung bumili ka ng PPE, investing activities naman yan. Okay, so ganun siya. Alright, next. Punta tayo sa balance sheet. Kumpletuhin natin, class. Long-term investments. Nakita mo yung 225,000. Siyempre, investing activities yan. So, lagay natin dito. Operating, investing, and financing. Okay? So, investing, financing. Lagyan natin sa long-term investments, investing activities. Tama ba nag-increase ng 225? Ibig sabihin, bumili tayo ng 225,000. Alright? Sige, prepaid expenses from 315, naging 351. Tama ba kasi yung prepaid expenses natin nag-increase ng 36,000? So, operating activities, increase ng prepaid expense ng 36. So, syempre, minus 36,000 tayo dyan. Alright? Let's go to merchandise inventory. From 1,260,000, naging 1,950,000. So, nag-increase yung inventory natin by 690. Increase in inventory, syempre minus yan, 690,000. Next is AR. Okay, from 1,080,000, naging 1,560,000. That's increase of 480. So, nag-increase na naman, minus 480,000. Yung cash natin, from 640, naging 690. Nag-increase ng 50,000. Mamaya, dapat yung net nito, 50,000. Share capital from 2.4 million, naging 3 million. Tama ba, class? Sabi dun sa baba, last sentence, ordinary shares were sold to provide additional working capital. Kumbaga, debit cash, credit share capital, increase yan is 600,000. So, ibig sabihin, financing activities yan. Issuance of shares, 600,000. So, plus yan, syempre. Next natin, retained earnings. Actually, yung retained earnings, lagi ka di mag-TT account dyan. Okay? So, lagyan natin RE. Meron tayong beginning balance na retained earnings, 688,000. And then ending balance na 906,000. Tama ba, class? Yung retained earnings, meron tayong net income. Tingin ka sa gitna. 2021 net income is 519,000. Nakita mo yan? So, lagay mo sa credit. 519,000. Ibig sabihin, class, solve for X ka dyan. 688,000 plus 519,000 minus 906. Makukuha mo dito is 301,000. Ano yung makakapag-decrease ng retained earnings? Dividends. Got it? Pero take note na meron tayong dividends payable na account sa problem. Ibig sabihin, hindi bayad lahat ng dividends na yan. Dividends payable, 0 siya, 2020, naging 201,000. So, ibig sabihin, class, yung 301, ilagay mo siya dito, solve for X, yan lang yung binayaran natin na dividends for the year. 301 minus 201,000, dividends paid natin, 100,000. Yung ilalagay mo sa financing activities, kasi dividends paid, financing yan. Wag yung 301, dapat 100,000 lang. Okay? So, minus 100,000. Alright, that's dividends paid. Next, doon tayo sa long-term note. Okay, long-term note natin, note payable, 1,095,000. Nag-borrow tayo na 750 para sa acquisition ng PPE, pero naging 1,275,000 lang siya. So, 1,095,000 plus 750 minus 1,275,000, sold for X, 570,000. Ano ba kasi ibig sabihin ng 570,000 na yan? Nagbayad tayo ng notes payable na 570. Notes payable is non-current liability. Lagyan natin dito. Payment of notes payable. How much? How much? That is 570,000. Okay, syempre negative kasi nagbayad tayo. Okay, next is, don't forget na, eto hindi pa natin na-consider. Tama? Nung nag-borrow tayo ng 750, financing activities din yan. So, lagyan natin dito, issuance of notes payable. How much? 750,000. Pero nung bumili tayo ng equipment, investing activities yan. So, lagyan natin dito, equipment, or PPE. Ano naman yan? 750,000. Okay, so PPE. Alright, so tandaan mo, isang transaction, o two transactions pero separately natin present. Nung nag-borrow ka, financing. Nung bumili ka, investing yan. Okay, so may nakalimutan pa ba tayo? Let's go to liabilities. Hindi pa tayo tapos. Accounts payable. From 282,000, naging 309,000. Tama ba? Nag-increase ng 27,000 yung accounts payable. Pag accounts payable, direct relationship yan. So, plus 27,000. And then, accrued expenses. Last one. From 0, naging 825,000. Siyempre, nag-increase. Plus 825,000. How much yung net income natin for the year? 519,000. Okay, so let's compute for cash flows from operating activities. 519,000 minus 36,000. Okay, minus 690. May depreciation expense na ba tayo? Wala pa. Huwag mo kalimutan yung depreciation expense. Kaya kailangan nating class gumamit ng accumulated depreciation account. Okay, so 270 and then naging 450 depreciation expense natin. From 270 naging 450, you have 180,000. Okay, depreciation expense yan. Tandaan mo sa indirect method, dapat mo consider mo depreciation expense. Add natin 180,000. Let's recompute. 519,000 net income plus 180,000 depreciation expense minus 36,000 prepaid minus 690,000 inventory minus 480,000 AR, plus 27,000 AP, plus 85,000 accrued expense, 345,000. Sagot natin sa question number 1, cash flows from operating activities, 345,000, letter A. Question number 2, investing activities, dalawang negative, 225,000, plus 750,000, you have 975,000. Question number 2, letter C naman yung sagot natin for investing activities. And last one, question number 3, financing activities, 600, minus 100, minus 570, plus 750, you have 680,000, letter dog for question number 3. Okay, so that's the last problem for statement of cash flows. Let's finish this by answering theory questions. Okay, bilis lang. Number 1, the primary purpose of the cash flow statement is, so again, yun yung inflows and outflows of cash. Punta ka dun sa letter A, to provide relevant information about cash receipts and payments of an entity during the period. Inflows and outflows of cash, letter A for question number 1. Number 2, an entity shall prepare a cash flow statement or statement of cash flows and shall present it as, punta ka dun sa dog, integral part of the enterprise's basic financial statements. Ibig sabihin, part siya of the complete set of financial statements. Okay? Number 3, the cash flows shown in the statement of cash flows, alam natin, meron dyan operating, investing, and financing, letter A for number 3. Number 4 are the principal revenue-producing activities, yun yung main line of business, operating activities, letter A. Number 5, acquisition and disposal of long-term assets and investments, PP and long-term investments, letter B, investing activities. Number 6, activities that result in change in size and composition of contributed equity and borrowings, non-current liability, and equity, we know, financing activities yan, letter C for number 6. An entity shall report cash flows from operating activities using, pwedeng direct, pwedeng indirect. Again, applicable lang yung direct and indirect sa operating activities. Number 8, the direct method of presenting the operating activities is the method whereby, yung number 1 yung sagot natin, okay? The major classes of cash receipts and gross cash payments are disclosed. Ito siya. Kasi yung number 2, net income adjusted for the effects of transaction, indirect method yan. Ang tanong sa atin, direct method. Okay, number 9, what item appears first on the statement of cash flows using the direct method, cash received from customers? Letter A for number 9. Let's go to number 10. To arrive at net cash provided by operating activities using indirect method, it is necessary to report revenues and expense. This is done by, punta ka sa BOY, eliminating the effects of income statement transactions that did not result by corresponding increase or decrease in cash. Ito yun, yung adjustments for non-cash items. Okay? BOY for number 10. Number 11, in a cash flow statement using the indirect approach for operating activities, increase in inventory, alam natin, pag nag-increase yung current asset, inverse relationship. So dapat, i-deduct natin yan. Dog for number 11. Number 12, operating activities include all of the following except A, cash receipts from royalties, fees, and commissions, yes. Cash payments in behalf of employees, cash receipts and payments of insurance entity, yes. Dog yung hindi operating because nakalagay cash receipts from sale of PPE, ito yun, intangible assets and so on, investing activities yan. Dog for number 12. Number 13, all of the following should be classified as investing except, lahat yan investing except C, cash outflows to lenders for interest. Pag interest, operating expense yan. Okay, letter C, operating activities yan. Letter C for number 13. Number 14, financing activities include the following except A, cash proceeds from issuance of shares, financing. B, cash payments to owners to redeem entity shares, again, pag equity, financing. Cash payments by a lessee, non-current liability yung lease, financing. Letter D, cash advances and loans made to other parties. Actually, pag nagpa-loan ka, loans receivable yan eh. So, mas applicable dyan yung long-term investment. Kapag ganyan, investing activities yan. That's why number 14, dog sagot mo dyan. Alright, now, before we continue, may gusto na akong idagdag dun sa discussion natin earlier. So, take note class na under PAS 7, we have alternative presentations. Okay? So, we can present interest and dividends in two ways. Tingnan mo na. Kapag interest received, na-receive natin. Okay? Pwede siyang operating, pwedeng investing. Bakit operating? Eh, interest, current yan. Current asset yan eh. Or, yes, or current item yan. Tama? Receive, pwedeng investing kasi na-generate natin yung interest na from investments. So, interest received, pwedeng operating, pwedeng investing. Okay? Interest paid, alam natin yung interest paid. Operating yan. Pero pwede rin yung financing. Bakit sir pwedeng financing? Kasi yung interest paid, di ba, nagbabayad ka ng interest because meron kang long-term liability or non-current liability. Pwede rin financing yan. Dividends received, operating siya, pwede rin siyang investing. Bakit sir pwedeng investing? Kasi nag-earn tayo ng dividends from investments. Dividends paid, pwede siyang operating, pwede siyang financing. Okay? Kasi yung dividends paid, di ba, retained earnings yan, so pwedeng financing. Ito yung mga alternative presentations natin. So, ibig sabihin, acceptable kahit ganyan. Pero if silent yung problem, ito yung treatment natin sa board exam. Okay? Interest received, if silent, operating. Interest paid, if silent, operating. Dividends received, if silent, operating. Dividends paid, if silent, financing. Ayun. Tandaan mo lang yan. Tandaan mo lang, tatlong operating, isang financing. Ayun. Sige, punta tayo sa number 15. Theory number 15. An entity other than a financial institution receives dividends from investments. How should it disclose? Kapag dividends received, pwedeng operating, pwedeng investing, punta ka sa BOY, either as an operating or investing cash into. Number 16, in the statement of cash flows, alternatively, interest received and dividend received, okay? Interest received and dividend, alternatively, pwede siyang investing. Okay? So yung hindi ko binax, yun yung alternate niya. Okay? Yung binax ko, yun yung priority. So pwedeng investing yan. Letter B for number 16. Number 17, under PS7, interest payments. Pag interest, syempre, operating yan eh. Okay? Pero pwede rin financing kasi nagbabayad ka ng interest because of your non-current liability. Letter C, either operating or financing. Which of the following is continuous cash flows from operating activities? Okay, yung A, cash receipts from sale of PP, investing yan. B, cash advances or loans made to parties, loans receivable, investing. Cash receipts from payment of advances and loans, investing din yan. Letter D, cash receipts and payments from contracts held for dealing or trading purposes. Take note, class, kanina, kung maalala nyo, kapag FVOCI, kapag amortized cost, investing activities. Kapag FVPL, operating activities. Tandaan nyo ha, FVPL, operating activities yan. Bakit sir? Kasi yung FVPL, current asset yan, kaya operating. Okay? Dog yung sagot mo dyan for number 18. Number 19, which of the following would affect both financing and operating activities? Punta ka sa dog. Redemption of debt. Bakit sir? Kapag nag-redeem ka ng debt, may gain or loss yan. Tama? Yung gain or loss punta ng operating activities yan. Yung cash na binayad mo to redeem the debt, financing activities kasi liability yan. So therefore, redemption of debt, pupunta ng financing yung cash payment mo, yung gain or loss adjustment sa operating activities. Dog for number 19. How should the gain from the sale of used equipment for cash be reported in cash flow? So well, yung gain, maalala nyo sa indirect method, dinededuct natin yan sa net income. Letter C for number 20. In operating activities as a deduction from income. Which of the following, 21, would be added back to net income? Punta ka dun sa boy. Bond discount amortization. Bakit sir? Kapag discount, tawag sa bond discount entry mo dyan, debit interest expense, credit discount on bonds payable kapag nag-amortize ka. Expense yan, non-cash item yan. Pero bumaba yung net income natin. Kailangan mo i-add back yan. Okay? That's why boy for number 21. Pag premium naman, minus naman yan. So yan. Number 22. How should an unrealized gain on foreign currency transaction? Unrealized gain, ibig sabihin, hindi pa natin nabibenta, pero may gain tayo. Tumaas yung net income mo, kailangan mo i-minus yan to get the cash flow. So dog, okay, adjustment to net income under operating activities. Number 23. In a cash flow statement, if used equipment is sold at a gain, the amount shown as cash flow from investing activities equals the carrying amount plus, ganito mangyari dyan class, mag-assume tayo ng figures. Nagbenta tayo ng equipment, let's say for 100,000. Carrying amount niya is 80,000, therefore, meron tayong gain. Tama? May gain tayo na 20,000. Sabi dyan class, how much daw yung cash flow na ilalagay natin sa investing activities? Di ba yung 100,000 yan? Tama? So, ibig sabihin, equal daw siya sa carrying amount plus the gain. Letter A. 80 plus 20, ayun, 100,000. That's why for number 23, letter A sabi mo yan. Okay, 4 items na lang. Number 24. On July 1, X company signed a 20-year building lease that it reported as a finance lease. X paid the monthly lease payments. How should X report the effect of the lease payments in the financing activities? Well, dalawa yan. Yung principal, financing activities kasi non-current liability yung leases. Tama? Yung interest portion, again, pag interest, paid, operating. Okay, by default. Okay? That's why ang best answer dito, letter C, as an outflow equal to the 2021 principal payment. Kasi sabi dyan, how should X report the effect of the lease payments? So yung principal payments daw, letter C. Okay? Lalagay mo siya sa financing activities. Yung interest component sa operating activities yan. Letter C for number 24. 25. An entity purchased a building and the seller accepted payment partly in shares and partly in debentures or bonds. Okay, so bumili ka ng building, nag-issue ka ng shares and bonds. Non-cash transaction yan. I-disclose mo lang yan. Letter C. The transaction does not belong in statement of cash flows and should be disclosed in the notes to financial statements. Doon siya sa notes to financial statements. Number 26. Which of the following should be disclosed in the cash flow statement? Tapos sa letter C. Issue of common stock. Letter B pala, boy. Conversion of debt to equity. Debt, ginawa mong equity. Okay? So, walang cash transaction dyan. Walang cash component. Significant non-cash transaction yan that we have to disclose. Boy for number 26. And number 27, last one, most entities interpret the significant non-cash investing and financing transaction should be reported. Again, kapag significant non-cash transaction, i-disclose natin yan in the notes to financial statements. Letter C for number 27. Okay, that's it for statement of cash flows.